as a political party down at the Millbank, would anyone in this body here today want to affiliate to them? And secondly, what trade unions would want to affiliate to that political body if it stood today? What does it stand for? It stands for not just accepting that there has to be sometimes the entry of privatisation into our services, but it embraces privatisation. That's the difference. This party wants privatisation. It praises privatisation and it stands for privatisation. It supports the continuance of anti-trade union laws. And also I'm going to remind people is what's going to happen in June. In the June elections that take place in the European elections, people in this country are going to be faced with a situation of either voting Liberal, New Labour, Tory, or something else, but those three major political parties, all supporting privatisation, all supporting the anti-trade union laws, and all supporting a European superstate. With that in mind, what representation are workers going to get when they're confronted with a situation where not just having anti-trade union laws foisted upon them in Britain, but having European laws directly as a result of the European Parliament in the form of European court judgments against us after the Viking, the Val, Rufet and Luxembourg cases impede and foist up more action against working people and fighting back. So as a result of that, we have to ask ourselves, as a trade union, which I'm speaking here today, about what we're about. You know the history of our union, how we used to be affiliated, like other unions, to the Liberal Party, and as a result of that, there had to be a breakaway from the Liberal Party for a view of setting up what was called Labour, because they recognised the fact, the pioneers of the movement, that in times of economic activity when things were going well, workers would achieve certain progressive concessions to their conditions of service, better pay, better conditions, and so on. But in times of the boom, they would get it, but in times of the slump, the employers would use mass unemployment to take those conditions away. And as a result of that, what they recognised the fact was that a trade union can only go so far. You know, we was talking 100 years ago about having protective clothing, and we was talking 100 years ago about having tea breaks, and we was talking 100 years ago regarding about having extra annual leave. The fact of the matter is, what they recognised the fact was that unless you change society, e.g. to a socialist society, then we're going to continue having all the gains that we win under the times of boom being taken away from us in the times of slump. So as a result of that, New Labour set up. We was the former supporters and founders of Labour, and subsequently the Labour Party moved to where it is now. And the fact is, the argument's been put up, well, Labour can still be changed. Well, our view is that Labour can't be changed. It's finished and it's over. I've said this before, I need to remind people, someone says, well, how stable is Labour? You know, it's like one of my friends who phoned up to see how his mate was in hospital. He phoned up the hospital said, he's very stable, your friend. He said, how stable is he? He said, he's dead. You can't be more stable than that. And the issue, quite clearly now, is that we're faced with a situation where we're being told that there's no alternative. Now, my personal view is that there's going to have to be a new political party sometime down the road. And I don't know whether it's this afternoon when we finish at 3 o'clock. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, a month, a year, 10 years or 20 years. But in my view, working people are not being represented. And I'm saying the word working people, I mean I'm talking about the people now who are scared to put their heating on, just like the couple who were married for 53 years, who were found huddled together in bed in Hull, who died of hypothermia, who are scared to turn their heating on, and then the banks can be given billions of pounds to shore up their class of people. I'm talking about the people that are scared to go out at night time, the people that are scared who can't afford to send their kids to universities, the pensioners who are being told you can't afford to heat your house up, just heat one room up, in sitting there with gloves that you put in the microwave oven, or you boil them, and you warm your hands or warm your feet until things get better, but they can find billions of pounds. The one thing that's come out of all this banking crisis is this. We was being kept on told that there was no money for this and no money for that. Well, never again can we be told there's never no money for it. The reality is that the 5 top bankers in Britain went over Brown and Darling on that Sunday afternoon and told Brown that unless you give us £57 billion, then the cash would start running out in the hole in the wall of the cash points. That's what happened. And that's what I call proper pressure on the government. It's only a shame that the TUC and the so-called Gang of Five won't go over to Brown and tell him that unless you give us jobs, unless you renationalise the industries, unless you bring back the white swans, not just the lame ducks, then we're going to stop Britain down, just like they were prepared to stop the cash points. We may have got some concessions from Brown as well. So comrades, what are we about? We're about representation. People that's in work, people that's not in work, unemployed. What's that political representation that we need? And the fact is, the problem as I see it, and we've all got baggage here today, myself included, on political parties. I'm in no party at all at the moment. I've been in a number of political parties. I look around here today and I see people that's been in a number of political parties. No disrespect to some friends I've got here today that have been in more parties than what Amy Winehouse has been in. But the reality is this: I don't blame them for being in those political parties. I blame them because they wanted to go into a political party to try and change things for the benefit of working people. And it's not a failure as I see it because a political party breaks up or splits up. It's a pathway, eventually, to achieving a political party which has got mass support from working people, both in work and out of work. That's what it's all about. And we've got to recognise the fact that we've got a duty, and we've got to be above being just in a situation of saying about what that political party's got to look like. Unless it says something about a certain policy here or a certain aspect there, we can't be part of it. Or what's our position on this? The reality is we've got a duty, as I see it, that we're seeing as we're looking around, hundreds of thousands of people, if not up to millions, being made redundant. At the same time, people being forced back into work who are not fit enough to go back into work. Where the employers who are looking for this period of time, that they might not be making the same amount of profits over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 or 10 years, but they're using this as an opportunity to make their workforce even more efficient than what it is now, more flexible, so when times do turn around, when they do eventually turn around, whatever that might be, then they've got a workforce that is going to be basically, their contracts of employment will be a piece of paper with your name at the top, and you'll be told you do what you're told, but what will come out of it, then workers will be able to make bigger profits in the future for the employers more than they're now. That's what all this is about. And I'll tell you what, if we just sit down and start arguing forever and more about what the political shape's got to be, then what will happen, by the way, as we're sitting there, people will be losing their jobs. And when they're looking for leadership, the only leadership they're getting at the moment is turning their TV on in the morning and seeing the person get up on BBC saying this shop's shut down and there's nothing you can do and you've got to get a pay freeze. No leadership being given from the TUC whatsoever. No leadership as an alternative to giving the bankers money. I mean, just look at it. I went to school and I was told LSD and I was told decimals. Not the LSD drug, the LSD currency. That come later on in life. And I know what LSD is and I know what decimal is. I don't know what a trillion is. I didn't even heard of the word a trillion. But I got told what a trillion was, and when I realised the value of it, a bit by John Pilger said that if the banks around the world would have kept 90% of the money and gave 10% back, so they still got 90% of the trillions they got, then world debt would have been wiped out. That's the scale of the amount of money that these bankers got. And that just shows you the scale, the influence that these bankers have got on big governments. Because when people get elected into these MP positions or when they get elected into the European positions, you hear people say, finally they're in power. They've got no power at all. Because the MPs in this country never had a debate about where the money should go. The people with the real power is global capital that dictates to these governments and multinationals what should take place out there. So we need to put up an alternative. And that alternative's got to be political representation. And the fact of the matter is that when a new political party sets up,